I now call upon the Nobel Peace Prize laureate of 2019 to come forward and give his Nobel lecture. Prime Minister.
I stand here in front of you talking about peace because of faith. I crawled my way to peace through the dusty trenches of war years ago. I was a young soldier when war broke out between Ethiopia and Eritrea. I witnessed firsthand the ugliness of war in frontline battles. There are those who have never seen war but glorify and romanticize it. They have not seen the fear. They have not seen the fatigue. They have not seen the destruction or heartbreak, nor have they felt the mournful impotence of war after the carnage. War is the epitome of hell for all involved. I know because I have been there and back. I have seen brothers slaughtering brothers on the battlefield. I have seen older men, women, and children trembling in terror under the deadly shower of bullets and artillery shells. You see, I was not only a combatant in war, I was also a witness to its cruelty and what it can do to people. War makes for bitter men, heartless and savage men. 20 years ago, I was a radio operator attached to an Ethiopian army unit in the border town of Bademe. The town was the flashpoint of the war between the two countries. I briefly left the foxhole in the hopes of getting a good antenna reception. It took only but a few minutes, yet upon my return, I was horrified to discover that my entire unit had been wiped out in an artillery attack.
The Nobel Peace Prize laureate of 2019, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed. Hello and welcome. You are watching Amhara TV and I am Fikradi Zodou. Today we are going to talk about Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's prize, Nobel Prize of 2019. And here joining me in the studio, I have Antene Tesfahun, Political Science and International Studies lecturer in Bahar Dar University. Thank you for joining me, Antene.
Thank you for having me, Fikra.
We are going to talk about the speech of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed while receiving a Nobel Prize of Peace and International Cooperation in Norway. He talked about a lot of things and addressed a lot of perspective in his speech. Let's begin with the calling of him. They call him to present or to present a lecture.
Yeah.
How come is that a lecture when it's supposed to be a celebratory speech?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to talk about this important milestone in our history as well. So the Nobel Prize speech is called a lecture because I believe the prize is given not only for the recipients of peace like Prime Minister Abiy, but also there are Nobel Prize recipients in different fields of studies. That included physics, chemistry, and many, an array of fields. And therefore, those people who come to receive their prizes in physics and in biology, what they do is not just give celebratory remarks or give some motivational speeches. What they do is they actually deliver a lecture on the specific thing, on the specific achievement that they did in their field, which usually has to be explained for the outer audience. Therefore, I think that's why they call it peace. And regarding the Peace Prize, the lecture would be about the understanding of the recipient regarding peace and how his achievement, his hallmark achievement that begat him the prize, is located within the broader field of peace. And therefore, I think that's why they call it a lecture.
Okay, they call it a lecture instead of a speech because of that.
Yeah.
And Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed received 100th Peace Laureate Prize for Peace and International Cooperation because he stops the war and peace position or condition of Eritrea and Ethiopia. And on the speech, we saw that he do that because he was a witness himself in the war. And war is a cruel thing to be witnessed. So like, I think the trauma he has been in was his inspiration to advocate for peace. And here is something he said about like people romanticize or like think like war is an adventure because they were not there. They didn't witness a war. So like, what do you say? Do we have to witness a war to know that the bad or the negative effect of war? Should I be a witness of war? Should I be involved in a war to know that the cruelty and the savageness of war?
Well, I think in this particular lecture that he was delivering, what he did, I believe, is he tried to situate himself as a person into these broader circumstances that brought him into becoming a Nobel laureate. And that is that he was part of the military. He has actually engaged in the war, in the particular war that he helped stop and that he got the Nobel laureate for, the Nobel Prize for. And I think he had to mention it because that informed us, or that he hopes, I believe, that it will inform his audience where his commitment comes from. I don't think we need to be combatants. We need to see the horrors of war ourselves. We need to actually be victims of war to understand war or to want to get rid of war or resolve those conflicts that may lead to war. But I think what he is trying to use it for is he's trying to underline the commitment that he has for peace, particularly in this very conflict that claimed what he was saying, his comrades in arms, the young people that died. He narrated some stories, some particular stories. So I think he's trying to say, I know what I'm talking about. I know the evils of war, and when I say I want peace, I'm not just saying it to be acclaimed or to be praised. I am saying it because I know what it means to be in a war. So yeah, I don't think he is claiming that we don't know. He's just saying he knows more.
Okay, starting from his individual stories, his experiences can give like a good opportunity to connect with people, by the way.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Congratulations, Mr. Abiy Ahmed. And let's see another video and we'll get back to you.
The imaginary wall separating our two countries for much too long needed to be torn down. And in its place, a bridge of friendship, collaboration, and goodwill has to be built to last for ages. That's how I approached the task of building peace, a peace bridge with my partner, President Isaias Afwerki. We were both ready to allow peace to flourish and shine through. We resolved to turn our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks for the progress and prosperity of our people. We understood our nations are not enemies, and instead we were victims of the common enemy called poverty. We recognized that while our two nations were stuck on all the grievances, the world was shifting rapidly and leaving us behind. We agreed we must work cooperatively for the prosperity of our people and our region.
Making peace with Eritrea for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and for President Isaias Afwerki, it seems like the mutual feeling, right? Because they just get on it and like they just fix it. You know, like to fix 20 years of no peace, no war situation with two countries takes a lot, right?
It does.
But because the feeling was mutual and there was an interest of like peace with Isaias Afwerki too, it makes easier for Prime Minister Abiy to settle the things, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
But he has been saying like to make peace it took a lot. But for them, it took them like 3 months, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How come that happened for him? I am so glad and happy for him,
Yeah.
for them, for Ethiopia, Eritrea, and for the East African, the geopolitics of the East African condition. But how come that happens?
In such a short period of time. huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it seems that the whole reconciliation, the whole peace accord happens within 3 months or because of, only because of Prime Minister Abiy. But I don't think that is the case, because for the past 20 years, both countries have suffered a lot because of the no peace, no war situation, particularly the border towns and the border states on both sides. They have been victims of these silent no peace, no war circumstances. And so the toll that it took on the economies, particularly of Eritrea, Eritrea was put out in the cold because Ethiopia managed to win the diplomatic front and the support of the international community. And Eritrea was mainly, by and large, excommunicated by the international community. That hurt the economy of Eritrea, that hurt the stability of Eritrea, and the people of Eritrea have been feeling the burn of these times. And President Isaias also had some time, some 20 years time, to think about why the war happened and what should be done. And this hurt that the country is feeling, that President Isaias has been feeling for a long time, that has quite an important contribution for the peace, because it was beyond the stalemate, right? It was not like the Ethiopia and Eritrea was fighting yesterday and now they say, okay, no fight, let's be in peace. No, they have been fighting for 20 years, and that is tiring, that is exhausting, particularly for the economy of a new country, particularly for a country with a very small economy. They needed to get out of the cold. They needed to be put in-house, into the international community. And what Prime Minister Abiy offered to Eritreans and the President Isaias Afwerki is that he will speak on behalf of the President, so that the international community, who seem to be on the Ethiopian side, particularly in this case on Prime Minister Abiy's side, they will welcome President Isaias. Therefore, I believe he was all ready to make this reconciliation, because on the flip side, there was nothing. There was just quiet. That was hurting Eritrea, that was maintaining Eritrea in the excruciating position, out in the cold. And so the 20 years that passed, at least the 15 years that passed, once the anger, once the enmity has subsided, what was left was the hurt, and therefore it had to change. That hurt, the stalemate, and the hurt beyond the stalemate, that helped the rapprochement of Prime Minister Abiy to get a receiving hand, right? And so Prime Minister Abiy was, like we said previously, he was part of that conflict, and obviously he needed to change the situations within the region, and therefore I think that is how it went.
So like, can we say President Isaias Afwerki was just waiting for an opportunity, a window to get back to Ethiopia, to be in peace with Ethiopia? Then the charm of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came and just said, let's do that, right?
Yeah, I believe President Isaias was waiting for a bold Ethiopian who would come to him, and he got it in Prime Minister Abiy. He was bold. He was, I think, it became after those 20 years, after the destructions that we have seen, it became evident that the war was not wars fighting. And now everybody agrees, most people, I would say, agree it was a wrong war, fought for a wrong reason. And so what was expected was one side being bold, and that side is supposed to be an Ethiopian side. You know, I think we had to be the bigger guys in this case, and the bold and very open person like Prime Minister Abiy was the right person to bring President Isaias in. Yeah.
Being the right person to bring peace between Ethiopia and Eritrea, get him a Nobel Prize, and he is now the 100th Peace Laureate of Peace. Then he got a Nobel Prize, and we're happy for it, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's good to be the better person, always.
Yes.
And we're glad for that. Let's see another video, and we'll get back to you.
How it is that a conflict extending over 20 years can come to an amicable resolution. Allow me to share with you a little about the beliefs that guide my actions for peace. I believe that peace is an affair of the heart. Peace is a labor of love. Sustaining peace is hard work, yet we must cherish and nurture it. It takes a few to make war, but it takes a village and a nation to build peace. For me, nurturing peace is like planting and growing trees. Just like trees need water and good soil to grow, peace requires unwavering commitment, infinite patience, and goodwill to cultivate and harvest its dividends. Peace requires good faith to blossom into prosperity, security, and opportunity. In the same manner, trees absorb carbon dioxide to give us life and oxygen. Peace has a capacity to absorb the suspicion and doubt that may cloud our relationship. In return, it gives back hope for the future, confidence in ourselves, and faith in humanity. The humanity I speak of is within all of us. We can cultivate and share it with others if we choose to remove our masks of pride and arrogance. When our love for humanity outgrows our appreciation of human vanity, then the world will know peace.
It takes a few to make war, but it takes a lot to make peace. You are watching Amhara TV, and we are talking about the speech of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed while receiving a Nobel Prize for Peace and International Cooperation in Norway. So let's talk about peace. According to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, nurturing peace and nurturing being a human or humanity is a basic element to survive. And that has been his inspiration for the whole time, to bring peace in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and to lead the country as a whole. So is that even possible by preaching about peace? Can we bring peace like that?
No.
No.
The answer is we cannot bring peace just by preaching. Preaching is important. You have to preach it. There must be a relentless, positive
energy,
and preaching peace everywhere you are. That is important, but that is just half of, not even half of the things that you have to do to create peace, to build peace, to maintain peace. And so the Prime Minister has been preaching peace for quite some time. Right? Even before he became the Prime Minister, that was one of the pillars, one of the very landmarks in his political career, when he declared that unity or coming together and to create peace is our only option. That was what helped him as a springboard into becoming the Prime Minister. And so he's relentless in his preaching of peace. But if he is thinking, if he believes that that preaching is enough, then he is awfully mistaken. he is in for a rude awakening, I would say.
I hope he's not.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he is not. Nobody wants their leader to have a rude awakening to something that is as important as peace and conflict. I say that because look at what's happening in the country. The Prime Minister keeps talking about peace. The Prime Minister keeps talking about reconciliation and unity. But at the same time, what is happening in the country, what's happening on the ground, is otherwise. Right? So there is a misconnect between these two, between what is being done by the government he leads and what he is saying. And so I think it's Winston Churchill who said, if you want peace, prepare for war. You cannot maintain peace without being courageous, without taking the necessary measures to maintain or keep that peace. If not, there are always, everywhere, those elements of destruction, those elements of instability. They are there, but they need to be checked. They need to be put aside, or at least their power needs to be diminished through legal means, through moral means. Right? The Prime Minister's speeches, not just this one, but most of his speeches, they talk about the need for unity, the need for having an inclusive and diverse, open society. That is very important. That is what I like about the Prime Minister. But then, by just talking about them and letting those all present, they are present. You cannot just eliminate those forces of instability. But if you don't build yourself, if you don't build the mechanisms, the alliances, and the mechanisms are, they must be, according to his speech, and because what he showed us, they must be legal and moral mechanisms to deal with these forces of destability, forces of instability. And so, yes, the preaching is good and it's important. It's just the first part of keeping, maintaining, and building and creating peace, but then that is not enough. That is not sufficient. We need to have those mechanisms in place so that we will be active on the ground in living what we are preaching.
So we can say, like, things do not happen because you wish them to be happening, right? No. You have to work for them. We need a practical strategy to make a peace, right, in the country.
Exactly.
So more of, it seems like it's more of fantasizing about peace instead of working for it. Mm-hmm. So like we need to be practical.
Exactly. Here is the thing about this practicality and the walking the talk. You know, the talk is easy, of course it is. Yeah. The walking is hard. Mm-hmm. And when you do so, if you are an individual, then that's an individual preference, an individual stamina, determination, and so on and so on. But when you are a head of government whose decision affects millions and millions of people, and when you talk about peace and the trying to put that peace, trying to create that peace on the ground, we are saying there must be mechanisms to deal with those forces of evil, I would say.
Obviously.
He has called them out repeatedly in this speech. But then when we say he has to act, he has to exercise some mechanisms, then there is this very, very important element that needs to be kept in mind, not just by himself and by his government, but by the general public. That is, there is a very thin line between individual freedom and security. We want peace because we want to lead a secured life, right? Yeah. We are talking mainly about the negative peace, what we call the negative peace. That is, we don't want to live in social strife, ethnic conflicts, in the absence of rule of law, and so on and so on. We're not talking about the positive pieces, the peace that is about having, not being protected from. We're talking about the negative one. And so to deal with those elements, that means he has to take measures. But then when he has to take measures, he has to be measured, right? Because, like I said, there is a thin line. There are people that are thrown in jail in the name of security, right?
Yeah.
That, I think, deprives them of their freedom, those particular citizens that are thrown in jail, but then it creates an atmosphere of fear for the rest of the millions of people. And so I understand there is this difficulty. It's not as easy, as easier said, as easier done, as we are saying, but we need to see at least there are some blatant forces that need to be contained, that need to be dealt with, and we are not seeing that, and that's why we are being somehow critical of this misconnection between the speech, the talk, and the action on the ground. But the freedom and security nexus, the balance has to be stricken between these two. Otherwise, we will be back into the bad old days.
Because the walking and talking are different.
Yes.
That's why we're talking about challenge and like conflicts and arguments about the prize instead of celebrating it, because it is a big deal getting a peace prize in front of the world, right?
Yes.
So let's see another part of the speech of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Norway, and we'll get back to you.
Word signifies synergy, convergence, and teamwork for a common destiny. Madamar is a homegrown idea that is reflected in our political, social, and economic life. I like to think of Madamar as a social compact for Ethiopians to build a just, egalitarian, democratic, and human society by pulling together our resources for our collective survival and prosperity. In practice, Madamar is about using the best of our past to build a new society and a new civic culture that thrives on tolerance, understanding, and civility.
Madamar. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said we can use Madamar, or the philosophy of synergy or working together or systems thinking, as a social compact for Ethiopia. It seems like Madamar is going to fix everything for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. It seems like Madamar is going to bring peace. It seems like Madamar is going to bring economic development, and it seems like Madamar is going to fix every ethnic conflict which has been like going on in Ethiopia for the last 2 or 3 years. How do you see Madamar and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed? He can't stop talking about Madamar, by the way.
Yeah, it is his, I think, not only his personal ideology, but he wanted it to be popularized into becoming the ideology for the Ethiopian society. And he wants to lead his government with the ideals of what he calls Madamar. And I think...
Is it authentic?
Well, I
Can
think
we say it's authentic?
I think it requires a very more in-depth discussion to say about Madamar, because, I mean, he wrote a book that is over 350 pages, and so it would be unfair for him to just say about his ideology in these 2-3 minutes that we are left with. But I can say this: I have read the book, and it starts with the critique of the liberal and the socialist camps, the two major ideologies of our time. His critics seem to be, or at least I thought, because it was written for the general public, it was not written for an academic purpose, and so I thought his critics are somehow lacking about the other ideologies, and he came up with this idea. This idea, it's a good idea. He came up with it as a personal idea. It's good, but I would just say that it needs more work. It requires to be detailed. It requires to be based on empirical research than just simple observation by an individual. Therefore, with some work, it can be, after being enriched for quite some time, it can be a better way as an ideology to lead a government.
You know what? I like the way that he incorporates the Ethiopian indigenous knowledge of, like, you know, like you will have like the proverbs, the tales and the legends of Ethiopians, most of like the Amhara and the Oromo people. You know, he's trying to incorporate the indigenous knowledge and like the trend of the people, the way of life of the Ethiopians, to make it more like structured in an ideology or a perspective or a philosophy. But people say that like it has something from socialism, it has something from capitalism, and it has something from neoliberalism too. So like it is like a combination of thoughts, which has been like merchandised to be an Ethiopian or customized to be an Ethiopian idea of by and large, in economic terms, it's more of a neoliberal idea of markets, you know, depending on the market. That even though he points that the government should have a role in it, he seems to be a believer in market capitalism. And here's the thing: you cannot escape either of the two major ideologies. That's what have been working on regarding Africa, you know, whether Africa needs its own ideology or not. From independence until now, for the last 50, 60 years, Africa has been choosing this one or that one, and none of it is hers, right? So as a start, as a beginning, none of them, not only the leaders, but not even the intellectuals tried to come up with an African ideology, right? Even the Pan-African institution, the African Union and previously the Organization of African Unity, even they did not try to come up with the authentic African ideology for the political economy of the continent. And so, as a start, I appreciate it. I appreciate that he tried to link the Ethiopian circumstances with these major ideologies, because the tenets are either this or that. We need to come up with an innovative one. But then we are a poor country, we are dependent on the West or the East, and therefore it is hardly possible to do so. So I appreciate it. But then it needs to be actually rooted. Even if you are trying to bring those and make them Ethiopian, to Ethiopianize, to indigenicize those thoughts, then they need to be based on empirical evidences. They need to be based on empirical research about the Ethiopian society, not just based on what you think is the Ethiopian society about. Right? He may be right. He probably has more exposure about the Ethiopian society. He has been in most parts of Ethiopia. He is probably very keen observer, that his observations are right. But I don't think they are enough to say this is an Ethiopian society and this is what it needs. But like I said, I really, really appreciate his attempts to bring them and make them an Ethiopian ideology. Yeah. You know what? Hypothesizing and assuming about Ethiopian people was the mistake of all the politicians in the previous times. Yeah. But now we are going to wrap up about criticizing or talking about the speech of Abiy Ahmed. How about the conclusion?
Well, here are some of the points I would like to run over. One of the important things, one of the important things about this prize and the speech is it builds Ethiopia's image, and he did that very well. I believe so. Plus, it gave him a chance to promote and internationalize his ideology. He won the prize personally, and so he seized the opportunity to popularize his idea, and he did that well as well. one thing, he did not dwell too much on his achievements. He tried to, to say, we did that, we did that, we did that, but as a person who has been praised for a lot of things, he could have gone and gone. He did not. He did not dwell on his achievements, but I think that is probably because those achievements, they have won, right? They have started to be very appealing to many people, both internally and externally. And yet, it was disappointing for me that he completely failed to claim responsibility regarding the negatives that are happening, the ethnic conflicts, the displacements, the social strife that we are having now. He did not say his government failed in this or that way. Instead, he pointed finger at, rightly, I would say, at those forces of destability. That was very, very true. He rightly called out the force of destability as evangelists of hate and division, and admitted there is a toxin of hatred. However, his prescription seems to be from a good Samaritan instead of